all the key players are here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training. I'm Joy Adamson, Acting Chief Education Officer. With me, I have on my left the Deputy Chief Education Officer, Dr. Roderick Rudder, responsible for planning, and also the CXC Local Registrar. On my right, next to me, I have the Deputy Chief Education Officer for Schools, Acting, Mr. Glenn Price. And to his right, we have the Director of Education Reform, Dr. Ida Mae Denny. This morning, we are here to provide a brief update on the Bounce Back Summer Program. And I want to inform that later this morning, we will also be engaging with colleagues from across the Caribbean to discuss a learning recovery program entitled Let It Rip, which is designed to help students meet their learning outcomes commensurate with their grade level. And it's going to be a multi-pronged approach addressing teachers, learners, and even to the community. So the briefing, after the briefing, we wouldn't be able to entertain a lot of questions because that session actually starts at 10 and all persons here at the table have to be present at that session. Now, we know that with COVID-19, the educational system had to shift the way that we were delivering or learning. And on 2 occasions, our schools had to operate fully online. And when face-to-face classes started, we had about 50% of our primary schools operated in a blended approach where there were some days face-to-face and some days online. And although the ministry invested in devices, we purchased devices, that is tablets and computers for our students, we did some ongoing monitoring which revealed that several students were unable to access the online classes due either to a lack of electricity, due to the absence of Wi-Fi, poor connectivity, as well as a number of other social issues. Now, these issues, coupled with students not adjusting to the new modality of instruction, resulted in significant learning loss. Indeed, a study financed by the Caribbean Development Bank has concluded that children across the region have suffered learning loss of between 2 and 24 months. It is therefore against this background that we took the decision, the Ministry of Education, to introduce what we call the Bounce Back Summer Program. Now, this is an initiative designed to provide students at the primary level with 3 weeks of activities to support the learning and development that would have been adversely affected as a result of the challenges through that online modality. We here at the ministry, we are aware that 3 weeks cannot address all the deficits in learning, but it's a starting point. The program has been developed for students from infants A right through to class 3 in our public primary schools. Registration forms were sent out to the emails of all students, and they were also available on the ministry's website. To date, approximately 2,400 students, which represents about 15% of the 5 cohorts, that is infants A, infants B, class 1, class 2, and class 3, have expressed an interest in participating in this program. Now, the program was initially expected to be facilitated by the respective class teachers at the schools. However, we are aware that the teacher unions and the principal associations, although in principle stated that they supported the initiative, collectively felt that too many teachers were fatigued, they were tired, they were burned out, and they would not be able to give of their best if they took part in that program. The stance therefore taken by these bodies resulted in the need to expand the volunteer base for facilitators. And we also had a call for persons to volunteer, and to date, 354 persons have registered. These include 168 teachers and 186 non-teachers, made up of retired educators, students from Eardiston Teachers Training College, university graduates, social workers, and psychologists, and other persons interested in giving back service to the nation. A brief training session is planned next week for any non-teaching volunteers. These persons will be paired with teachers to assist with the instruction and delivery. Now, how will the Bounce Back program work, summer program work? We have identified 13 centers, schools across Barbados, both primary and secondary, in several zones. We have a north zone, a south, east, west, and central. The students who have registered have been assigned to the nearest center based on their school location. However, we can make allowances where possible for persons to be accommodated at a more convenient center if they so desire. Now, the Bounce Back Summer Program has been arranged for core subjects to be taught in the morning, such as language arts and mathematics, with sessions for social and emotional learning included as well. The day will start at 9. There will be 2 breaks, and we have already coordinated with the school meals department to provide packed lunches that will be served at 12:30. From 1 to 2:30 p.m., creative activities will be organized. These will include tours, an opportunity for them to do drama, physical activity, exploring that affective domain and the creative side of the individuals. The ministry has also secured sponsorship for stationery and other supplies for the camp. Now, each program, Infants A and Infants B, and then Class 1 to Class 3, would have been originally scheduled for 3 weeks. For Infants A and B, it was Monday, July the 19th to end on August the 6th. For Classes 1, Classes 2, and Classes 3, it was originally scheduled to start on Monday, August the 9th to Friday, August the 27th. The situation to date, however, based on the recent directives from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, there are to be no summer camps for the next 2 weeks, this week and the following week. This means that the identified start date of July the 19th for the Infants A and Infants B would now have to be adjusted. But the new date will be influenced by the future directive from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The ministry cannot state a date now until we get further direction. If the restriction for summer camps is extended, then the Ministry of Education will still put measures in place for these students who we know would have lost a lot, to ensure that when they return to school, there is time allocated for some form of remediation. Now, the results of the national assessments recently completed will be used by principals to plan a course of action for students in the new school year. We will work with the principals to make sure that they have plans in place. Principals will be requested to submit these plans by a specific deadline so that we will be aware as a ministry of the needed resources and where we need to put extra resources, either personnel or physical resources in place so that the plans can be executed. And throughout the course of the year, because this cannot only be for one term, it has to be ongoing. Throughout the course of the year, the ministry will also work with principals to implement the programs and continue to design and make sure that we compensate for the ground loss by our students during the course of the last year. So that's the information that I wanted to share as it relates to the Bounce Back Summer Program. We are aware that there are other forces and other things happening around us, such as the COVID-19 and the spike. And I want to state that we want from the media, we want honest reporting. And we want to make sure that we check our facts before we print so that we do not have persons panicking unnecessarily. And I want to introduce now Mr. Price to speak about the procedure for students writing the exams who have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, either persons who were positive or persons who had to be in quarantine, As you are aware, we do have, and again, we want correct reporting, 27 students from the St. Jude's Primary School currently in quarantine. And we have to look to what we're going to be doing with these students or any other student who would have tested positive or happened to be in quarantine. So I hand over now to Mr. Price.
Good morning, all. Today, there has been no change to the scheduled day for the administration of the exam, so therefore it's still the 28th of July. We have had several requests for students to defer writing the exam. I think there are about approximately 120 requests for those persons who, for various reasons, would prefer to defer the exam until a later date. They also request for about 12 students to write the examination early. Now, in previous years, we had a very rigid criteria for writing the exam early. And that basic criteria was that the student had to score 85% or above in 6 terms preceding the exam. 3 terms in class 3, 3 terms in class 2. Now this year, because, as the chief was saying earlier, there has been serious challenges to some students. We had device issues, we had connectivity issues, then we had the loss of electricity. So there were a range of issues that affected the students who wanted to write the exam early. So initially, when we were doing our review, we had stuck to that criteria, right? But on reflection, we are reviewing that process. And hopefully by the end of today, schools will be notified if there have been any changes to those students who have made requests to write the examination early. Right? As the chief also said just now, there were a number of students at St. Jude's Primary School that are presently in quarantine, class 4 students. Now clearly, those students may very well be affected in terms of their preparation for the 28th. So what we have decided is that not only the students from St. Jude's, but any child, any class 4 child, who is scheduled to write the exam on the 28th, and for whatever reason, whether they're in quarantine, whether they have just been released from quarantine, and if the parents, in their opinion, feel that the child has suffered trauma and is not mentally ready to write this examination, we will make arrangements for the child or the children to write an alternative exam in the future. When I say the future, somewhere between the 28th of July and normally the 1st of September. That is normally the time span where we will make arrangements for these alternative exams. So in terms of common entrance, we are still on schedule and everything is still go. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to say too that if these students, if you provide evidence that you want to defer and not take that alternative exam, those special cases only for these students will be considered as well. So I now invite Dr. Roderick Rudder, the CXC, the local registrar for CXC, to speak about the procedure for students writing the CXC exams who would have been positive or in quarantine. Dr. Rudder?
Good morning, everyone. This year, as a result of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had a situation where there are a number of students who would have been placed in quarantine. And as a result, we have been following both the protocols as established by the Ministry of Health, as well as the guidelines provided by the Caribbean Examinations Council to facilitate those persons who are in quarantine. However, at this stage, there were approximately 10 persons who would have been so affected by the need to facilitate such examinations, and what we have done where it was possible to facilitate the e-testing that would have been done. And in instances where there were paper-based tests, the protocols were followed as it relates to the appropriate use of personal protective equipment, as well as the required social distancing, sanitizing, and handling of the examination papers in an exclusive way to ensure that there's no possibility of transmission. I want to, however, go on to another subject that I believe is even more critical for those students who would have been impacted by the passage of Hurricane Elsa on the 2nd of July of this year. Following the passage of Hurricane Elsa, the Ministry of Education approached the Caribbean Examinations Council to request special hardship consideration for those candidates who were so affected by the passage of the hurricane. We have subsequently received confirmation from the Caribbean Examinations Council that those candidates who were affected and unable to write examinations on that day will be accommodated in the following manner. For those candidates who missed out on the opportunity to write English B, which is the English literature, there were approximately 1,473 persons. The English B examination, which will be held on the 12th of August 2021 for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, will be made available for Barbadian candidates to write as well. So the opportunity will be given to Barbadian candidates to write the paper 1 for English B electronically on the 12th of August in the afternoon. That would be approximately at 1 p.m. In the case of those persons who would have been impacted regarding the Cape Computer Science Unit 2, paper 1, they will have the opportunity to write that examination on the 20th of August in the afternoon as well. And for those candidates who were unable to write their French Unit 2, Paper 1, they will have the opportunity to write that examination on the 20th of August as well. However, there are approximately 5 subjects at the Cape level where there would be consideration of hardship by CXC regarding the fact that there would be no alternative paper for these particular candidates, and those are in the areas of Chemistry Unit 1, the alternate paper, Accounting Unit 2, Paper 2, Building and Mechanical Engineering Drawing, Unit 1, Paper 2, Geography, Unit 1, Paper 2, and Performing Arts, Unit 1, Paper 1. Those candidates will benefit from the application of the Caribbean Examinations Council hardship policy with regard to the assessment and award of grades. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rudder. We also have Dr. Ida Mae Denny here. Any comments, Dr. Denny?
Thank you, Chief. I just want to reiterate what the Chief has said in relation to getting back on track. You will recognize that we would have planned the summer program to begin the process of getting back on track early. We have, however, been impacted by the recent spike in the COVID-19 cases. But our efforts are going to be significantly bolstered by the work of our regional institutions, the Caribbean Development Bank, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the OECS Secretariat, who have got together and developed a program which they are terming Let It Rip. It is a model learning, recovery, and improvement program for the entire Caribbean. And they have done a program for ministries of education as well as for principals. So that is something that is going to bolster our efforts to get our children back on track in terms of the loss of learning that would have happened in the last year. So I want to reiterate that that is something that is going to help us significantly. And even if we are not able to get the summer school program going, this is going to assist us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Denny. As I said earlier, we have to then attend that same session that's starting at 10 o'clock. So we weren't really entertaining any questions, but we still have 5 minutes if there was anything that we missed out. Okay, we're going to do I'm going to send to our GIS officer the dates, especially for those who would need for the CXC exams, those alternative dates. So those will be shared with you afterwards. Any pressing questions? One question.
Yes, Chief Ed Adamson. Just quickly, given the fact, especially with the common entrance exam, that there are going to be some disjointment in terms of some students taking the exam at different points, given the COVID-19 issue. In terms of school allocations and so on, is that going to be interrupted in any way in how that is actually being assessed and done?
Please realize that every year we do have children taking exams at different times because somebody might be sick, somebody might have had a broken leg, you know, they might have had a death. So this is something that we facilitate every year. And we will continue to do it. So everything should be on track as it relates to the allocation. Things are in place already at CXC, so that should not be interrupted. Okay? All right. Good. All right. Thank you very much for coming. And we're looking forward to the positive reporting from all media houses. Be safe and do have a good day. All right.